Thank you very much. I'm
Wish
very
you
honored
well.
for the opportunity.
Pray for your success. Because there's a lot of it's a tough one. So anyway, good luck. And okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The chair votes aye, and you, yeah, you also.
Yeah, I'll vote, yeah, I just want to
Okay.
make note that I wasn't there.
Okay, very good. So yeah. All right, so now,
Thank you.
congrats. Congrats. All right. Okay, let's move on to item H4.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, H4 proposes a couple of things. H4 proposes an amendment to a contract that is in existence with a law firm of Coda Cole related to representation of the county in child and family services, basically dependency cases. This is a contract that was initiated earlier in the year by Ms. Vanderploeg. It came back to you once before for an amendment, and now you're being invited to consider a second amendment. And essentially what that's being proposed for is to deal with the May and June bills. You know, I read the agenda item and it said that in an amount sufficient to pay the May and June bills, $32,000. That's not the amount of the May and June bills. That's the total amount of the requested contract, or the cap on the contract. The May and June bills total about 11,500 or 12,000. And so there was an ambiguity in the way that that was worded. My apologies. Suffice to say, as the transition occurred in the office of the county council, the contract was in existence and the services were being provided. And basically I got the first bill on Coda Cole, I believe it was in June, during my tenure as county council. When I got that, it occurred to me that I better set about the process of trying to work out a long-term solution to this problem, and that's why you're seeing it today as it relates to both issues. One is to pay the bills for May and June, but also is to basically ask for your consideration and approval, if you deem appropriate, that essentially, as I view it on the second item, it's a kind of a policy statement, if you will, how you want to resource the office of county council. The contract is being, the second item is the proposal to contract with Coda Cole for the remainder of this fiscal year 14-15 to continue to provide that service related to representation on dependency cases. I will tell you that there's been a couple of different structures proposed. One is to just have this moved off to Health and Social Services. They can administer the contract and handle it all through their budget units, and essentially county council's out of the loop entirely. I was not in favor of that necessarily. I didn't want to relinquish that, but the alternative was to they provide the service for Health and Social Services, the CPS folks, CFS, excuse me. Those are some of my old terminologies. But we continue to administer the contract to the Office of County Council, and I believe that's appropriate if it continues. And so I think maybe, and I don't know if I'm going to put Ms. Brawley on the spot here, but I don't know if she's inclined to comment on the desirability of this particular firm providing these services or not. I can tell you that Coda Cole has and is contracting with some other small counties to provide this service. Trinity for one, I believe Alpine is another, Modoc a third. I don't know if there's a fourth or fifth, certainly us at least in the early part of this year. But they're specialized in providing this service in an area of law that changes quite regularly. They're quite capable in this particular discipline. More to the point, I think that their skill is someone that the Child and Family Services folks have appreciated. And so much so, and I think I included in bold in my memorandum to you the proposition that Health and Social Services has increased the amount of the revenue item to the Office of County Council for this coming fiscal year in hopes that this contract would be approved, that they value their service and would like to continue with it.
Totally agree with Bob. They've been doing a great job for us, and the dependency is a very specific section of the law. They do a great job. Generally, Margaret has been here. What's Margaret's last name?
Long.
Margaret Long has been here, but the attraction of contracting with a firm is that this is a firm that specializes in dependency law. If Margaret can't be here, someone else will be who has that same specialty. And we're very happy with the work they've done for us, and we appreciate the opportunity to do this, and I'm perfectly happy to have council office control this contract, because I got too many contracts already.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there any questions for the board?
Yeah, generally, do they stay within their budget? I mean, let's see, $5,500 a month, and then I saw that 32,000
Yeah.
for the 2 months, and I kind of wondered about that. So our May and June bills came to how much?
Approximately 11.5 or
So
12.
they're within
They
they're a
are.
little over their budgeted amount.
A little bit, yes, sir.
Does that normally happen?
You know, the calendar fluctuates, that's the problem. It's hard to predict with total precision, because one month we may have an excess of activity associated with detaining and then advancing through the court process minors who have been essentially taken from their homes. And let's not forget that that's what this is about, taking kids from their homes. And some months are busier than others, and that's an activity that is difficult to predict, you know, when it's going to be more busy than other times. And so, you know, it may be that we have more court activity down the line, like in the form of an appeal or the like, or contested hearing. So in terms of totally predicting which month that it's going to be stable across the board, that's hard to.
But the history is they're generally pretty close.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's
Yes,
what I
sir.
was trying to get at.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bob, being that the amount on the agenda for May and June is not correct, should we not take
Well,
action on that?
It is correct in the sense that the Second Amendment that's being proposed is to $32,500, and that is what is set forth in the attachment to the budget. The way that it was worded, a person could conclude that the May and June bills were for $32,500. That would be their conclusion, but the documents certainly support the proposition that it's the Second Amendment that's for $32,500. Did I answer your question?
I just want to be sure that was clear.
I believe it is. And if, even if it wasn't clear, then what did we do? Did we overstate and overnotice on the agenda an amount? I don't see the issue.
All I can say is county council is confusing. I thought the Second Amendment was about guns.
Today, the Second Amendment is different.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the one thing I would like to point out in here, reading this, you know, we have 10,000, we have 20,000, you have 20,000 again. You have 5,500.00. There's nothing in there that has a dollar sign in front of it or dollars behind it. I mean, somebody might, you know, I would like to see that delineated a little bit, because when you first amount of 10,000, is that hours or is that going to be dollars? I mean, just,
Yes, sir.
I would like to see that cleaned up a little bit there in the future going forward, so that there's no confusion.
If I could
Yes,
answer
sir.
that, instead of us kind of lurching along every couple of months, coming back with the Second Amendment, a Third Amendment, and doing that, and 10,000 here and 20,000 there, is that what would be nice to have, I think this was a contract that emerged mid-year, so that's why it was a new contract. It was meant to be for a short period of time, but now it appears it's going to be over a longer, extended period of time, that maybe we should have a full appropriation for the full year and a clear understanding. I mean, if it's $5,500 or $6,000 a month, you know, $6,000 a month is $72,000 a year. So I can tell you right now, $32,000 isn't going to cut it. You're going to be back looking for at least another $40,000 over the next several months. So,
Well, let's make sure, because I'm thinking perhaps we have a misunderstanding. The packet plainly stated that there were two items being requested. One was an amendment to the contract that existed, that was created earlier in the year, to deal specifically with the bills that are currently in existence for work that has already been done. But that there is a new contract also being proposed, which is included, which will cover the entire upcoming fiscal year, for which dollar signs are attached.
There's two parts to the action.
Yes, sir. And that there is also an attendant revenue amount included in the proposed budget at H2, which was passed some moments ago. And so we've been through the budget committee on that. We think that this deals with, number one, the bills that were presented that remain unpaid, that kind of occurred in the transition time in the Office of County Council.
We haven't done H2 yet, but that's okay.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is that we went through the budget process and that's included in that as well. So we're trying to deal with the bills that are outstanding, but also the long-term solution. And that's why you're seeing me coming to you in July rather than at the last meeting or the meeting before when I had 2 bills waiting to be paid. I wanted a long-term solution. Took me some time to solicit and then acquire a proposed long-term contract from Protocol, basically. And that's the second part of the item. So I hope I answered your question, Mr. Chairman.
You did.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so before we take any action, I'll go to the public comment. Anyone who would like to comment on this agenda item? Eileen?
Eileen Spencer, FamilyHealth.com. There's no, could I get the fund and also the line item account number? Normally they're on there.
As I indicated in my memo to the board, that is to be paid both for the May and June bills, but also for the proposed contract for this coming fiscal year out of the professional and special services line item out of the Office of County Council. The number of that being, I think the last is 2200, but I'm not certain of that
I
entirely.
can assist with that.
Thank you very much.
It's been paid out of Fund 100, budget unit 0141, account number 300, 2300.
23. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who needs computer?
So she's got a computer between her ears.
Alrighty,
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Hi.
I just kind of want to help Bob clarify the situation with county council. In last fiscal year's budget, 60% of the deputy county council was reimbursed by CPS for their time and services. In the ongoing budget, that position will be fully funded by general fund, not covered by CPS partially.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll bring it back we'll bring it back to the board. Is there, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to authorize the chairman and CEO to sign an effective amendment to the existing contract with Coca-Cola. Is that right?
Coca-Cola.
Oops, it says go on one spot.
That's your error.
C-O-T-A-C-O-L-E.
Correct.
In an amount sufficient to pay the May and June 2014 bills. And to consider authorizing the chairman and CEO to sign the proposed contract for legal services with Coca for 2014-15.
Thank you.
Yes, I got it.
And then we know.
I second.
Okay, very good. It's been moved and second. Did you have a comment? Yeah, we've taken public comment, but I'll go ahead. I want to make sure you.
Yeah, I was trying to get in before you ended the public comment.
I'm sorry.
I was just wanting to state, there was a misunderstanding here with these numbers a few minutes ago with Bob. I've dealt a lot in my life with numbers and amounts and dollars, and I would just feel more comfortable if we got all the amounts correct with the dollar signs in front of the appropriate amounts, and then bring that back for a proper vote.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bob, can you just slide that quickly before we take?
Certainly, the numbers that I expressed in my memorandum did not have a dollar sign before or after. But they were expressed in terms of 20,000, period. In the attachments to the memorandum, which include the Second Amendment and also the proposed contract, dollar signs are included. And I don't think that there can be any ambiguity that we were talking about US dollars when we were discussing those. The issue on the agenda associated with the 32,500 is correctly stated, but others could interpret that or conclude that that was the amount of the May and June bills. That was not the case. It was plainly included on the attachment, the Second Amendment, that it was the cap on the contract.
All right, so we'll leave it up to the decision of the board to take any public comment. Thank you for that, so,
Thank you.
okay, there's a motion and a second.
I guess we could say the motion would include those changes, clarification.
Okay.
Would that help?
Just in the minutes, clarify just in the minutes.
Whatever the board's pleasure is.
I'm still concerned with the May and June bill of 32,005. I don't see the harm in correcting it and then bringing it back for a vote. To not minimize the ambiguity, but just to get rid of it.
Well, does our packet, is the attachment, is it indicating May and June bills?
Let me look. The memorandum certainly does, yes.
It does, yeah.
Chairman, I was just making a note of those, the dollar signs on the memorandum in case for Mr. Burns to help clarify that for not only myself, but people, for everybody else, just so there'd be a clear understanding, so they wouldn't have to read farther into the packet.
Yes, sir.
That was my comment.
There is no ambiguity at all that the Second Amendment says on its face that the maximum amount to be paid under the contract would be $32,500 US dollars.
Not South African rand, we get a good deal for rand.
Well, it's got the dollar sign there, and so.
Right, and what it says, and I see it different after you explain it, you know, in the amount sufficient, and then there's enough money to pay the bills.
Understood.
May and June bills, of 32,000. That's not saying the May and June bills are 32,000, and that's how I did read it myself. First, but after clarification of council, I can see that that's not what it says.
But you needed a clarification of council.
I
That's
did
my
need
concern.
clarification of council, you're correct, I mean, that's why we got council, CAO, Melanie, and staff here, because a lot of this stuff is not clear to us, and we have to ask staff, the appropriate staff members, exactly clarify this for our understanding, so we do understand it correctly.
Understood. My only concern was to make it so we don't need a clarification of council, that it's clear on its face.
Well, I think a lot of things aren't clear to us that aren't expertise in certain
True.
fields, and that's again why we have staff members here to clarify things that maybe are not, maybe are written correctly, but we're just not expertise in them issues, so we don't understand, then we have to ask questions, and then they are clarified. This doesn't make sense to me now, which it didn't before.